A few years later, Blockbuster was gone. Netflix survived. Then it changed the entertainment industry forever. But this story isn't really about movies. It's about timing, about human behavior, about seeing the future early enough to survive it. Because long before Netflix became a global streaming empire, it was just a risky idea born during one of the strangest moments in technology history. The late 1990s felt exciting. The internet was spreading into homes across America. New companies appeared almost every week. Investors were throwing money at websites with strange names and unclear business plans. Everything suddenly felt possible. At the same time, people still lived very differently from today. If you wanted to watch a movie, you usually drove somewhere to get it. Streaming didn't exist. Smartphones didn't exist. Social media barely existed. Entertainment still had physical limits. And inside that world, one thing annoyed customers constantly: late fees. People forgot to return movies on time. Then they got charged extra money. Sometimes a few dollars, sometimes much more. One of those frustrated customers was Reed Hastings. The famous version of the story says Hastings returned a rented VHS tape late and had to pay a $40 penalty. Over the years, the story became part of Netflix mythology. Hastings himself later admitted reality was probably less dramatic than the legend, but the emotion behind it was true. People hated late fees, and Hastings started thinking about a different kind of system, something simpler, something that removed friction completely. Around that same time, another technology started appearing quietly inside electronic stores: DVDs. Today, they feel ancient, but back then, DVDs looked futuristic compared to VHS tapes. They were smaller, lighter, cleaner, and easier to store. Most importantly, they could fit inside envelopes. That tiny detail changed everything. In 1997, Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph founded Netflix in California. At first, the idea sounded almost too simple. Customers would choose movies online, and Netflix would mail DVDs directly to their homes. No stores, no driving, no late fees. Now it sounds obvious. Back then, it sounded risky. People still didn't fully trust the internet. Buying products online felt strange to many Americans. Some customers worried their credit card information could be stolen just by typing it into a website. And honestly, the Netflix website itself looked pretty basic in the beginning. The company was tiny. Around 30 employees worked together, trying to build something most people didn't fully understand yet. But before Netflix could become successful, the founders needed to answer one important question: could DVDs survive the mail? Mark Randolph later described one of their earliest experiments. They mailed a disc to themselves inside a regular envelope. Then they waited. If the disc arrived broken, the business idea might collapse immediately. But it worked. The disc survived, and suddenly, the impossible idea felt slightly more real. Still, reality hit hard very quickly. Netflix burned through money fast. Warehouses cost money. Shipping cost money. Technology cost money. Meanwhile, Blockbuster stores were making billions. The comparison felt almost unfair. Imagine trying to compete against one of the biggest entertainment companies in America while your own business still looked like an experiment. That was Netflix's reality every day. And then things became even worse. Around 2000, the dot-com bubble exploded. Internet companies started collapsing everywhere. Businesses disappeared overnight. Investors panicked. Thousands of people lost jobs. Suddenly, being an internet company stopped sounding exciting. It sounded dangerous. Inside Netflix, fear started growing quietly. The company needed cash desperately. Employees wondered how long things could continue. Investors became nervous. Reed Hastings knew something had to change. Sounds unbelievably small. Modern Netflix is worth billions and billions. But at the time, 50 million probably felt like survival. Blockbuster said no. To the executives sitting in that room, Netflix looked weak. DVDs by mail seemed niche, and internet businesses still felt unstable after the dot-com crash. Why would they buy a struggling startup? From Blockbuster's perspective, the decision made sense. That's what makes this story so fascinating. History feels obvious only after it happens. At the time, nobody knew streaming would eventually dominate the world. Nobody knew physical video stores would disappear. Nobody knew a small startup called Netflix would one day produce Oscar-winning films and global television hits. Back then, Netflix was still fighting to survive month by month. Then the company made a decision that changed its future forever: subscriptions. Instead of paying separately for every movie rental, customers could now pay one monthly fee and rent as many DVDs as they wanted. And maybe the smartest part? No late fees. That idea sounds normal today because streaming subscriptions are everywhere now. But psychologically, this was brilliant. Blockbuster's system created stress. Customers constantly worried about returning movies on time. Watching films came with pressure attached. Netflix removed that pressure completely. Suddenly, entertainment felt easier, more relaxing. Customers could explore different movies without feeling punished financially. And something interesting started happening. People stayed, not because Netflix had the biggest movie library, not because the website looked amazing, not because the company had huge power. They stayed because the experience felt better. That difference mattered more than anyone realized. While Blockbuster focused on transactions, Netflix focused on habits. And habits are powerful. Once people experience convenience, they rarely want to go backward. Meanwhile, Blockbuster faced its own invisible problem. Late fees generated enormous profits. For years, customers hated them, but the company depended on them financially. This happens surprisingly often in business. A company discovers a profitable system. The system works for years. Then the world changes. But changing the system feels terrifying because success became built around it. Blockbuster was trapped by the thing customers hated most. Netflix, meanwhile, kept evolving quietly. The company improved its recommendation system. It studied viewing habits carefully, which genres customers liked, which actors attracted attention, which movies people rented together. At first glance, it looked like movie data. In reality, Netflix was studying human behavior, and the company learned something important very early. Most people don't actually know what they want to watch. Too many choices create anxiety. People scroll, hesitate, change their minds. So Netflix built recommendation systems designed to feel personal, almost intimate. For many customers, the platform slowly started feeling like a friend who understood their taste. That emotional connection became one of Netflix's secret weapons. But while the DVD business kept growing, Reed Hastings was already thinking far beyond physical discs. He believed DVDs themselves would eventually disappear. And honestly, that sounded crazy at the time. In the early 2000s, internet speeds were still painfully slow in many homes. Watching full movies online felt unrealistic. Buffering alone made people angry. But Hastings kept focusing on one word: streaming. Most successful companies protect the business they already have. Netflix did something much harder. It prepared to destroy its own business before someone else could do it first. That mindset changed everything. In 2007, Netflix officially launched streaming. The early version was small. The movie library was limited. Video quality wasn't perfect, but something revolutionary had started. For the first time, people could press a button and watch instantly. No mailbox, no waiting, no trip to the store. Instant access changes human behavior incredibly fast. At first, streaming felt like a bonus feature attached to DVD subscriptions. Then slowly, almost quietly, it became the future. Netflix expanded onto gaming consoles, smart TVs, tablets, and phones. Entertainment escaped the television itself, and family routines started changing too. Before streaming, television schedules controlled viewers. You watched shows at certain times. You waited a week for new episodes. Missing an episode actually mattered. Streaming destroyed those rules. Now, viewers controlled everything. And once people experienced that freedom, traditional television suddenly felt old-fashioned. Meanwhile, many media companies still underestimated Netflix badly. Hollywood studios licensed old content to the platform and earned extra money from it. Easy business. But Netflix was learning from every click. The company understood which genres people binged late at night, which actors kept viewers engaged, and which stories people finished fastest. Traditional television relied heavily on instinct. Netflix increasingly relied on data. Then came a turning point that changed the entire entertainment industry: House of Cards. In 2013, Netflix released the political drama as one of its first major original productions. This was an enormous risk. Producing original shows cost billions. If audiences rejected the content, Netflix could face serious financial damage. But the company believed its data gave it an advantage. Netflix knew viewers loved political thrillers. They knew director David Fincher attracted audiences. They knew Kevin Spacey was popular at the time. So Netflix committed fully. And then it made another radical decision. Instead of releasing episodes weekly, the company dropped the entire season at once. All episodes. One day. That moment changed viewing culture forever. Binge-watching exploded around the world. People stayed awake until 3 in the morning, saying the same sentence again and again. Just one more episode. Netflix understood something deeply human. Our brains hate unfinished tension. When stories stop during emotional moments, curiosity becomes uncomfortable. We want closure immediately. Streaming platforms removed natural stopping points completely. No commercials, no waiting, no breaks. The next episode started automatically before viewers even had time to think. And slowly, Netflix stopped feeling like a company. It became part of modern life itself. People talked about Netflix nights, Netflix marathons, and Netflix and chill. The platform shaped language, relationships, and habits. But success brought dangerous new problems. The more Netflix grew, the more money it needed. Producing original content cost extraordinary amounts. Some shows became massive global hits. Others disappeared almost instantly after release. And competitors finally woke up. Disney Plus launched. Amazon Prime Video expanded aggressively. Apple TV Plus entered streaming too. Suddenly, the company that once looked like an outsider became the giant everyone wanted to challenge. At the same time, Hollywood studios started pulling content away from Netflix. Why help a competitor become stronger? Popular shows disappeared from the platform one after another. Friends left. The Office left. Marvel content disappeared too. The streaming wars had officially begun. And for the first time in years, Netflix looked vulnerable again. Then came another complicated issue: attention. Modern entertainment companies no longer compete only against each other. They compete against everything: TikTok, YouTube, gaming, social media. Every app wants human attention constantly. And attention has become one of the most valuable resources on Earth. Netflix understood this better than most companies. The platform wasn't simply delivering entertainment anymore, it was designing engagement. Recommendation systems became smarter. Autoplay became smoother. Personalized suggestions became more accurate. Some critics compared streaming platforms to casinos, not because movies are dangerous, but because both systems rely heavily on anticipation and reward loops. One more episode, one more recommendation, one more cliffhanger. Hours disappear surprisingly fast. And maybe that's why Netflix became especially important during the COVID-19 pandemic. When millions of people suddenly found themselves isolated at home, streaming exploded worldwide. People felt anxious, lonely, and uncertain about the future, and stories became emotional comfort. Families watched together. Friends recommended shows endlessly online. Entire countries became obsessed with the same series at the same time. During those strange months, Netflix felt less like technology and more like companionship. Then, in 2022, something unexpected happened. Growth slowed. For years, Netflix looked unstoppable. Investors believed subscriber numbers would continue rising forever. Then the company started losing subscribers in some markets. Wall Street panicked. The stock price crashed dramatically. And suddenly, old fears returned. Had Netflix become too expensive? Were viewers overwhelmed by too many streaming platforms? Was the golden age of streaming ending? After years of dominating the conversation, Netflix found itself under pressure again. The company responded aggressively. It introduced cheaper ad-supported plans. It cracked down on password sharing. It focused more heavily on profitability instead of pure growth. Some users became angry. For years, password sharing had almost become part of Netflix culture itself. The company once joked about it publicly online. Now, it was restricting the behavior it had previously tolerated. But Netflix understood the math. At its size, small changes could affect billions of dollars. And despite criticism, many of those changes worked better than expected. Still, the future feels uncertain again. Streaming is no longer new. Now, it's crowded, competitive, exhausting. Every company wants subscriptions. Every platform wants attention. Every service wants people to stay inside its ecosystem as long as possible. And younger audiences are already changing habits again. Many teenagers spend more time watching short-form videos than traditional television shows or films. The next entertainment revolution may already be happening quietly somewhere else, exactly the way streaming once emerged quietly beneath Blockbuster. That's the strange cycle of technology. The companies that change the world eventually become afraid of being replaced themselves. Today, Netflix operates in more than 190 countries. It produces massive global hits, watched across cultures and languages. Squid Game became a worldwide phenomenon. Money Heist proved international stories could dominate global conversations. A teenager in Brazil could suddenly become obsessed with a Korean survival drama. A family in Poland could binge-watch a Spanish crime series in one weekend. Streaming changed entertainment geography forever. But underneath all the success, the Netflix story still feels surprisingly human. Because at its core, this isn't just a story about technology. It's a story about fear. Fear of becoming outdated, fear of missing the future, fear of changing too late. Reed Hastings often pushed Netflix to evolve before evolution became necessary. That sounds smart now. In reality, it's emotionally difficult. Most people change only after crisis arrives. Netflix repeatedly changed while things were still working. From DVDs to streaming, from licensing content to producing originals, from an American platform to a global entertainment company. Each transition carried enormous risk, and many could have failed completely. That's easy to forget today. When people look backward at successful companies, history suddenly feels inevitable. But nothing about Netflix was inevitable. Not during the dot-com crash, not during the streaming transition, not during the expensive push into original content. Even now, its future isn't guaranteed forever. No company stays dominant permanently, and maybe that's the biggest lesson hidden inside this story. Technology changes quickly. Human behavior changes even faster. The companies that survive longest usually understand both. Tonight, millions of people around the world will open Netflix automatically, after work, before sleep, during dinner, on trains, on couches, in dark bedrooms lit only by screens. For many people, it has become a reflex, a modern ritual. Most viewers will never think about red DVD envelopes arriving in mailboxes, nervous employees inside a tiny startup during the dot-com crash, or one desperate meeting inside Blockbuster headquarters 25 years ago. But those moments changed entertainment forever. Somewhere tonight, an old Blockbuster store is probably still standing empty. And somewhere else, someone is pressing next episode on Netflix without thinking twice. One company saw the future too late. The other survived because it never stopped being afraid of standing still.
Thank you so much for listening to this audiobook. I truly hope these words inspired you, motivated you, and gave you something valuable to take with you into everyday life. If you enjoyed this recording, don't forget to subscribe to the channel